First Nations leaders and environmental groups spent years fighting Enbridge's controversial Northern Gateway pipeline project.
We will fight this.
The pipeline would have carried diluted bitumen from Alberta to Kitimat to then be shipped by tankers to Asia. But in 2016, its approval was struck down when the federal court found Ottawa had not adequately consulted with Indigenous people along the route. But now, Donald Trump's looming tariff threat has some people reconsidering the project, even those once bitterly opposed.
We are staring into the abyss of uncertainty right now with climate change, the climate crisis, and the American threat. So I would suggest that if we don't build that kind of infrastructure, Trump will.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre are actively pushing for a new pipeline to be built. Smith and others argue it's the only way for Canada to reduce its reliance on exports to the U.S. Assembly of First Nations Chief Terry Teegee says there's no consensus on new energy projects.
Some First Nations agree with some of the projects, whether it's Northern Gateway or LNG, and there are other First Nations that don't.
Premier David Eby says it's vital that Canada diversify its exports, but he says there are limits.
I have some differences of opinion with Premier Smith. When you're advancing proposals, I think it's critically important that the provinces where those those projects may be located, the Indigenous people who may be affected, the national government, I think everybody needs to be a part of those conversations.
Despite all this, Enbridge says it currently has no plans to develop Northern Gateway. Federal Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, meanwhile, says Donald Trump will be in office for the next 4 years, and building a pipeline takes much longer. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.